NBA playoffs this year. 28.9% of games decided by 20-plus points. That's going to be the highest percentage ever. NHL playoffs this year. 49.2% of games decided by 3 goals or more. That's going to be the highest in 30 years. Where are all the close games?
Roller coaster.
Second round, Tony.
Either love your team or hate your team from one day to the next. It's the worst.
How many minutes do you think the Celtics and Heat have both played good basketball simultaneously? I mean, how many? 2-2 sounds even. Sources report it is even. This series uneven, and visually, let's just say it's got a great personality because that's where we are right now. But how do you explain these blowouts, these no-shows? Bob Ryan, around the horn to you. You were there last night. How do you explain the variances here? Does anybody have an advantage? Is there any way to predict what's going to happen next?
One thing we have learned conclusively is that there's no carryover from game to game. This is true in both sports, all right? Let's get that straight. Momentum is a farce. It doesn't exist if it ever did. Now, technically speaking, there's one big determinant for the Celtics in this series against the Heat: turnovers. When they don't turn the ball over, they have no trouble getting done what they want to do in the half court. And when they turn it over and the Heat go the other way and score, the Celtics are in trouble. Celtics have totally dominated 80% of this series. They've lost 2 periods and by overwhelming margins in which they were completely embarrassed. And absent those 2 periods, this thing is already over, okay? Last night, there were 2 scores that were put up in the first quarter I've never seen, and I don't think anyone's ever seen in the 75-year history of the Celtics in the playoffs, and that would be the following: 18-1 and 26-4. I have never seen those scores in a playoff game, in the home game in the Boston Garden. I'll just say that. The Celtics are better, and if they don't beat themselves, they will win this series.
I realized I just gave you the algorithm filter like you were quoting some brilliant theorem, and you just said 18-1. But I stand by. I've never seen that before either. Israel Gutierrez now representing the Miami side of this discussion. How do you explain this?
It's really hard to say that one team is strictly better than the other team. I will say one thing that's quite important is health. And the health to Robert Williams is huge. If you look at just the swing and performances from Bam Adebayo in Game 3, where he can be aggressive and not have to worry about Time Lord at the rim, versus Game 4, where he was not aggressive and definitely had to worry about Robert Williams at the rim. But it wasn't just him, right? Because Jimmy Butler was not his normal self. His knee injury affected him. It seemed like he was attacking some, but not the type of Jimmy Butler performances you've been used to. It also appeared that maybe the Heat were trying to attack Robert Williams, thinking that his knee was not very stable, and it was. And so, but we still don't know if he's going to play in the next game because he's got travel, because he's got issues with it. So all of that stuff matters, and it could swing so wildly. What this game proved to me was that, yes, when the Heat offense isn't there, their defense doesn't work out the same. And the Celtics will turn the ball over more if the Heat defense is active and is flying toward the ball. So I think while it is a close series, while the games aren't very close, it is still very much a close series, and anything could honestly happen in Game 5. It wouldn't surprise me. It could be a blowout in either direction.
Harry Lyles Jr., I'll bring you in here. There have been injuries before in postseason series. There's been attrition before in postseason series. You don't see 18-1 in one game and a 39-14 quarter in another game like we have. What is the variance here?
Yeah, I know we expected a slugfest, not just between the playing styles, but it's like you said, like, people throw around war of attrition around very often, but this truly feels like that. And I think that's partially why the Celtics are better equipped to win this series, because they literally just got done doing that with the defending world champs against Giannis. They had Bob Williams in and out of that series in varying, playing minutes and things like that. But to me, they're upholding this a lot better than the Miami Heat are, and part of it is because of their defensive prowess. They're only allowing 98 points, 43% shooting, and just 27% from 3 when they're coming off of a loss. So not only do they rebound from their loss as well, but just in terms of depth and things that they're able to do across the floor, both offensively and defensively, I think that they're a little bit healthier than Miami at this point, and it's going to uphold for 3 more games better than Miami.
And Ramona Shelburne, when you view this series, all right, you heard Bob say it's only 2 quarters so far that Miami has basically won, and everything else has been Boston. Does that make you think, well, Boston has this on lockdown, or that Miami can still do something here?
I think Miami can still do something. To me, this series has been like a boxing match where you score each round, right? And sometimes there's decisive rounds and sometimes they're close. I mean, in this series, it's like Miami has fewer turnovers, gets more offensive rebounds, and shoots more free throws in game 1, they win. In game 2, it flips, and the Boston Celtics win. But I think in this, if it really is a boxing match, right? This feels like the Heat have not weathered their injuries as well as the Celtics have. I mean, Jason Tatum's been hurt, Marcus Smart's been hurt, Robert Williams' been hurt, but they've persevered. Whereas I think Miami with Jimmy Butler is really not the same. He's 4 for 13 last night, but I think the biggest thing, what Izzy was talking about, is he's not getting by people. He doesn't have the same burst. The first 2 games, Tone, he got to the free throw line 26 times. Yeah. The last 3 quarters, twice.
Okay. Yeah, the Willis Reed moments every night is getting a little bit. It's a little bit much, don't you think? Though guys miss 1 quarter, one game, they come back. Oh, it's a Willis Reed moment. How did they do it? Right? Bob, real quick on the variance we're seeing here and whether this is a new age of basketball and teams are prone to have 20-point swings so quickly.
One variable is the three-point shooting. Look, it's taken over the game, as we all know.
I was setting him up.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Look at Game 7 against Milwaukee. One team made 22 three-pointers. The other went 4 for 33. All right? That's the way the game is today. So if you tell me which team's going to make 22 tomorrow night and which will go 4 for 33, I'm going to tell you who's going to win the game. It's a huge factor, the three-point shot.
Thank you, Bob. I just love it. I'm here for it. That's fine. One last thing from last night. Can we post this? Rudy Gobert tweeting how good the Celtics defense is as Marcus Smart is on the bench. I mean, how great is that? I mean, just rubbing it in. I mean, nobody does it, Ramona, like the NBA.
Such a good subtweet.
Yeah, it is. All right, we'll move on. Now to the other series. The Mavericks' last chance saloon tonight, or maybe they shimmy off. Ramona Shelburne, do the Warriors complete this sweep? And if they do, how do they do it? Or if not, how would Dallas stave off elimination?
You know, I actually think the Warriors complete the sweep. Usually I say that it's at home, it's hard to complete the sweep, but the Warriors have won 9 straight conference finals games. And this team right now is reminding me a lot of the dynastic Warriors. I know they had 2 years off. It was like a sabbatical or something. But Draymond Green said something interesting the other day. He said, you know, no one really knocked us off the stage. Like, we just had injuries and we had setbacks, but no one grabbed a hold of that mantle in the NBA, and it's still right there for the Warriors to take back, and I think they're doing it right now. I also think the Mavericks look exhausted. It's just different defending Steph Curry and Klay Thompson for 48 minutes than it is defending even the Suns and the Jazz. Those guys are just pushing the perimeter defenders of the Mavericks so much, they're exhausted by this point.
Harry Lyles Jr.?
Yeah, to me, I think the problem with that the Mavericks have is not just them being tired, but it's that they have to stick to their scripts so much more than Golden State does. And I know with the Warriors, even with their greatest games, we talk about the Splash Brothers and what Steph and Klay can do to you. They're also doing something that they did during their run that really led to their success, and that was getting help from guys that you don't expect it from. We talked about Andrew Wiggins being a big defensive key to this series. He's averaging 20 points and 7 rebounds per game. We also had a Kevon Looney game that's very reminiscent of these random games you would see from Warriors role players like Mo Spates, Andre Iguodala, and others, and they're still getting those today.
Israel Gutierrez.
Yeah, so I think the Warriors are championship contenders, obviously. I don't think they're in that same overwhelming conversation that you're talking about from them, you know, but even before KD. Right. In large part because you look at the opponents, you look at sort of the parity of the top 8 of the NBA. I think it's a lot closer, certainly more wide open than it ever was, you know, even 5-6 years ago, right? And then you look at this Dallas Mavericks team, and they're a little bit ahead of schedule, maybe not the best test for them, and they're fatigued. Like, the shooting is just off, you know, not very good in this tournament, round of the tournament. And if you look at the way they play defense and like just recovering all over the place, and they just look tired. And so I think while this Warriors team is, again, it's still a championship contender, I don't think they've beaten teams that just say, hey, they're this overwhelming force. They're the same team that you know they were in 15, 16. I still think the Eastern Conference team will be the favorite if they go ahead and you know.
And Bob Ryan, you're a man of words. This is the one and only case we ever use the word stave, right? When you're in a series, can they stave off elimination? What could Dallas do?
That they would need someone to augment Doncic, who had a very inconsequential 40 points tonight. How about that the other night? Because he got 21.
If you don't say so yourself, yeah.
He got 21 in the fourth quarter when they weren't going to win the game. Okay, look, Dinwiddie's not going to get 30 any time soon another time, but he might get 18 or 19. They got to get some help. Remember, Brunson had that great run earlier in the other series, but they need more help. He cannot do it by himself. They're not that deep. They don't have enough scorers, period.
Back to this last game.
They're not going to win.
Dinwiddie, Brunson, and, of course, Doncic trio scored a higher percentage of points than any trio had in recent playoff history, and it still wasn't enough. Are we calling the NBA playoffs the tournament now, Israel? I kind of dig that. All right. One more story here, and it was a word you used. Ramona, dynastic. How great is dynastic as a word? And dynamic. The Tampa Bay Lightning. And deconstructed and disintegrating before our eyes, the Florida Panthers. Never really started the Battle of Florida, and it's already over. Andre Vasilevsky is a wall. And here we go, Israel Gutierrez. You can have a obituary for your Florida Panthers, but halfway to a three-peat, are you willing to call these Lightning not just favorites, but a dynastic lock?
They do seem like they're the type of team that just get better in the postseason, regardless of if they were missing an important player in a series. They still got better. If you look at last year against the Panthers, that was a 6-game series, and this one they absolutely dominated a better Panthers team. Vasilevsky, like you mentioned, like he will just make you cry because he just stops everything. And this Panthers team just didn't look like itself. But I don't think it was necessarily them. I think it's what the Lightning do to them, and it's a couple seasons in a row against the Panthers, and now we're going to see it probably for a third season going all the way to the Cup.
Harry Lyles Jr. are the Lightning, the dynastic lock to win here and make it three-peat.
It sure feels like it. I mean, you go up against the Florida Panthers team that led the NHL in scoring, hold them to just 3 goals the entire series. That is the second fewest by a team that has led the NHL in scoring in the same season. So to me, the Lightning are playing some of their best hockey at the right time. It sure feels dynastic.
Ramona Shelburne.
Well, I don't think you can undercount what Vasilevsky did, the 49 saves, but also the whole series. I mean, the Panthers scored 6 or more goals 17 times this year. To shut that down is insane. So, look, if they go 3 times in a row to the Stanley Cup Finals, that's the first time somebody has been to the Finals 3 times in a row since the mid-'80s when the Oilers did.
What's that stat again? They scored 6 goals or more in a game 17 times. They didn't get half of that in this 4-game series.
Yeah.
Bob Ryan.
I may not be an NHL expert, but I know from recent history that winning the President's Cup guarantees you nothing when you get to the Stanley Cup. Yes, that does not get you anything. So whoopee-doo, they had a nice regular season. They're clearly the favorites. I won't say prohibitive, but they're clearly the favorites. And by the way, what Vasilevsky is doing in clinching games, 199 saves out of 200 shots and 6 shutouts, that is astronomical. I can't believe that number.
Bob Ryan, 23. Ramona Shelburne, 22. Harry Lyles Jr., 17. Israel Gutierrez, 16. Buy or sell on the other side. Control up 3-1. But the story is Nazem Kadri's hat trick, because it followed Kadri's collision with Binnington in Game 3, and Binnington now out for the series. And Craig Berube's comments calling out Kadri's reputation and the racist attacks and threats against Kadri, a Canadian of Lebanese descent and one of the league's Muslim players, which led to increased police presence in the arena in St. Louis last night. But Colorado advancing Ramona, was last night a puck don't lie situation here as well as Kadri played, or is there still fuel for St. Louis because of that hit?
No, I think it was a puck don't lie. I mean, look, I didn't think that was a dirty play at all. I thought he just collided with the defender and ran into the goalie. I didn't think he may have a reputation, but I thought that was a clean play. It was just unfortunate because Binnington's been so good in these playoffs. But I think that's the only way you answer it. And I cringed when I heard some of the comments coming out of St. Louis. And there was a radio host there who was like, Binnington must be avenged with blood. I mean, come on, man. I know you're upset you lost your goalie, but that's not how you handle it. And
to be even more direct, there have been racist attacks against Kadri. So Harry Lyles Jr. put that to the side for a second, because the fuel that St. Louis may feel just may be, we need to be better on the ice and be more physical against Kadri. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm buying that, we expect our pro athletes to, behave at a certain level that we don't expect of our fans, right? Like whether or not you thought his play was dirty or not, nobody deserves racist remarks and threats directed at them. So the only way for him to respond to this was not just to play well, but a hat trick on their home ice. To me, you can't really do much better than that.
He did work the crowd a little bit after, I think it was the first goal. Israel Gutierrez, buy or sell?
Yeah, it's just so with so much feel bad on the front end, the feel good for him after doing all that, not just for the increased presence because of security, because of the racial comments, but the coach giving you the best billboard material ever, saying, look at his reputation. I don't know if you can feel much better, and as a team, I don't know if you can take much more momentum feeling good for your teammate into another game. Yeah, I think this is avalanche written all over it.
Brian.
Of course, I'm selling the disproportionate public reaction and the Ruby comments and everything else, but I have to salute Kadri for the great hat trick and the professional way he responded. And by the way, Mr. Perone has been fined $5,000 for his subsequent cross-check on Mr. Kadri, and I think that was highly appropriate.
Buy or sell two. OTAs. Russell Wilson really excited about OTAs in Denver. Take a look at this.
The guys were making plays all over today, just touchdowns after touchdown, making plays. It felt like a championship type week in OTA to ones.
Meanwhile, Kyler Murray skipping, Deebo Samuel skipping, Aaron Rodgers skipping. I can go on and on about those who are skipping. But two of those at least had flashing neon lights saying, is everything okay? But we're talking about OTAs. Israel, what are you buying? What are you selling from organized team activities?
I'm selling about worrying this early about the Cardinals. They've gotten off to good starts the last couple of years. I don't think they should worry too much about the beginning of the season. I think they should worry about later in the season. DeAndre Hopkins isn't going to be even available for the first 6 games because of his suspension. So they can sort of improve as they go. Don't need to be sharp right off the bat. Hasn't really gotten it much the last couple of years.
Harry Lyles Jr., how about you?
I'm buying Russell Wilson's excitement because of a new spot, but I'm also buying that guys like Kyler and Deebo are well within their right to hold out of voluntary OTAs when you are trying to get financial security that you've earned. If you have an ability to be one of the top earners, life-changing money in this sport, you should try to get that. And I don't think that we can do this thing where we're like, hey, it's a business when a guy gets cut, and then all of a sudden it becomes a children's game when they're trying to get.
Wait, so you're buying that Russell Wilson could honestly say championship caliber OTA day one? You're buying that one, Harry? But then you're saying they're not that important because the other guys don't have to go? I don't know about that. Shelburne, how about you?
Oh, spoken like a true 20-something here. I think you can hold out for more money and to get paid like that when you won something. But Kyler Murray, he's had a couple of nice years, but I don't think he's in that category where he can do that. And I'm just in a happy place these days, Tone. So I'd love to see veterans who are enthusiastic. And one of my favorite things, don't ever think you made it till you made it. And even when you're there, it's harder to stay there. So to see Russell Wilson out there, so excited to be back out and with a team he can win with, that made my day to see that.
So you're buying into this championship caliber day one OTA, Bob Ryan. Picture Russell Wilson walking in with a little lunchbox.
Look at that grin on his face.
And he's ready to rip. And what a great day. Good move out of you. I like that line. Is this really what we're doing?
We all understand Russell Wilson's happiness. He's jumped off the Titanic into a lifeboat. He's happy as hell to get out of Seattle. It's as simple as that. As far as OTAs are concerned, these guys are going to get signed, A, and B, the world got along fine without them for the first 50 or 60 years of the league, and they're not that important.
Wow. The league got along fine without him? What does that even mean, Bob? All right, OTAs. Gets everybody worked up. Harry Lyles Jr., Israel Gutierrez, thanks for your time. Mona Shelburne, Bob Ryan, showdown. 2 minutes. The Aces last night to beat the Sparks, which tied the league record for three-pointers in a game. It's been a little bit of a struggle to start the season for LA. Aces are 7-1. Are the Aces the lockdown favorite? Ramona Shelburne, around the horn to you.
Tony, I think a couple weeks ago you asked me the same question, and I said, I think the Aces are the lockdown
I thought
favorite.
you might bring that up. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was pretty on it. Look, I like the Sky. They just got Kalia Cooper back, but the Aces should be the favorite. Asia Wilson said it best. Becky Hammond has been a breath of fresh air for them.
Bob Ryan?
Well, you know how much I love the three, and last year Bill Lambier coaching that team didn't have them shoot too many, but of course now Becky Hammond has them shooting those threes. You can see why. But as far as the favorites concerned, yeah, they're favorites, but don't discount Washington. Elena Delle Donna's back. She's averaging her 18 points a game again.
Ramona, you got the points for being accurate in your preseason prediction, but of course, self-promotion is the maiden call, the mute button. So we'll move on. Showdown 2. Listen to this from the Mets game last night.
Hey, McNeil, work out those legs. You got no power. No power, McNeil.
So the head coach calls out his legs and his power, and then, of course, he hits the ball nearly to McCovey Cove. I mean, this is a bomb. Bob, where does the heckler go from here?
Well, you know where he could go? He could go volunteer to become a ring announcer along the lines of Michael Buffer. That's a hell of a voice he's got there, very piercing, penetrating. But as far as the response is concerned, that swing was better than any comeback line that Jeff McNeil was contemplating. I can tell you
Ramona?
that.
I actually kind of like the heckler. That is a very specific insult. Like, that's like saying, like, you use too big of words in your sentences. Like you're insulting the legs.
I love where the Mets are going here. A little bit of this. I like this. There's a little bit of Frank the Tank in there. Go ahead, Ramona Shelburne. 30 seconds of face.
Well, Tone, the people probably can't see because the shot is cut off a little bit higher, but this is probably my last show for a while because before I have my second son in a couple of weeks here. So I was going to save you guys the trouble of all the FaceTimes that I was going to do while I was out on maternity leave. I was probably going to rail against the elimination of the shift. I probably have something to say about my Stanford Cardinal making the Super Regionals in softball. But mostly I just want to say thanks to all of you guys for your support. Tone, when we first started doing this show, you and I talked about sports. Now we talk about our kids. See you soon.
Momo, I love you. We love you. You all
You
know
are gonna
Momo.
cry.
You know Momo for her incredible optimism and joy in life. But you know her as somebody who always has got it. She's got it. Momo, you got this.
Love you, Mo.
Can't wait to send you baby